is Congressman Jim Himes in Washington, D.C. Congressman, before we get to what needs to be done, you'll forgive me, I'm a little bit weary of everybody sort of saying something needs to be done. But all these regulators, all these various bodies that could have asked the questions and could have got close to it, didn't.
Yeah, no, that's right. And, there's a lot of challenges to that, right? But at the end of the day, that is exactly the right question to ask. Now, look, FTX was based in the Bahamas. They didn't have they forbade U.S. Investors from operating on their technology, at least on FTX.com. And so there were questions of jurisdiction. But, our chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Gary Gensler, has been saying for a very long time, and I'm not saying I agree with him on this, but he's been saying for a very long time that I have the statutory authority to regulate exchanges and tokens, 90% of which look like securities, and people are just widely non-compliant. Now, the SEC has originated a number of enforcement actions, but it's this very frustrating moment where you have the SEC chair saying, I've got the authority I need, everyone is non-compliant, but people are staying non-compliant. So I think the challenge here is to figure out how to get these many entities that are still out there watching this disaster to actually come register with the SEC and get into a regulated environment.
You see, the problem related to that, it's one thing if somebody puts their hand in the till and removes the money. I'll grant you that you can't legislate against that. Dishonesty is endemic or will be in certain environments. However, how do you create safeguards when you have an industry that is specifically saying, well, we don't need those safeguards. Well, you old fuddy-duddies over 50, what do you know about crypto and diversified and centralized finance? You're dinosaurs. Well, isn't this a proof, like with meme stocks, that if it looks too good, it smells too good, it's too good?
Richard, there's nothing that we can do in this building or that regulators can do to solve that problem. If investors want to believe in fantasies, if investors want to believe that there are securities out there that are based in the Bahamas, that are run by 30-year-olds living in some co-op with each other, playing lots of video games, and that somehow they've got a security that yields a risk-free 8%, there's really nothing we can do to fix that. What we can do is what we've started to do already, and we started to do in the last couple of months, which is to say, okay, if you're going to put a stable coin out there, a stable coin, of course, being a digital asset, it will be well reserved. For every dollar that you say that stable coin is worth, there will be a dollar in reserve somewhere. So that's the kind of thing, we didn't finish that piece of legislation, but that's the kind of thing it's on us to do.
Congressman, the allegation of dirty money flowing through, it laps, when I say at your door, I don't mean you personally, obviously, it laps at the door of Congress and all politicians at different levels. Does Congress need to look at itself and say, were we too easily duped by lobbyists' money, which has subsequently found to be less than clean?
So I don't think that's at play here. Now, there's a whole other conversation to be had about the permeation of money in the U.S. political system. And yes, that's a very, very good conversation. But look, a year ago, very few members of Congress had any idea what a crypto asset was. And very few people around here today have particularly strong convictions. I think most people are still learning. Yes, you might have been visited by one of these companies or whatnot, but this is really technical stuff. And I got asked the question just an hour ago, if Sam Bankman-Fried had come and testified in front of your committee, would people have been easy on him because, he gave somebody $2,900 in campaign contributions? The answer to that is absolutely not. Now, I do want to have that other conversation about campaign finance reform, but in this particular instance, this is more a question of it being an immensely technical and esoteric topic, with members of Congress being far from experts on finance, much less on next generation finance or cryptocurrency.
Right, now that's a great point, because we all remember those toe-curlingly cringeworthy hearings where members of Congress didn't even know what the internet was or were asking fairly. Now, I'm not saying we're anywhere like that, but once we're dealing with crypto, I've seen many hearings where senators or congressmen are reading complicated questions legitimately written by staff to probe, but without having knowledge to then supplement and go for the jugular. What can we do And believe me, by the way, sir, when I say that about Congress, I've seen the same in the European Parliament. I've seen the same in the House of Commons. It is the nature of generalized politicians when they come face to face with highly specialized subjects.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And look, democracy is a messy, messy system. When you have a system where the people get to choose whether or not I come here or not, guess what? You're not going to have 435 people who are, deeply trained in the ins and outs of non-fungible tokens and next generation finance. Now, what does happen is over time, people take an interest, staff who are paid to become true experts on this stuff learn. But, and I'm not making excuses for the Congress. I hope that the Congress finishes the process of regulating stablecoins and moves on to regulating the kind of entities like FTX, the brokers, the exchanges, and those sort of things. So I'm not making excuses here, but you don't have a star chamber in this building. You have elected representatives, and so there is a learning curve.
So finally, do you sort of feel like I do that, I'm not against crypto, and I'm not against Bitcoin or any of these things, because I sort of feel that this is the future. And the idea of the smart contract is the future. It's just how we get there and use it.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I would call myself sort of an optimistic skeptic. I draw an analogy to the way the internet looked back in 1996, 1997. There were bizarre and insane ideas. An awful lot of people lost a ton of money investing in crazy internet ventures, right? But at the end of the day, it was transformative. Look, blockchain as a mechanism for keeping records, of establishing provenance of assets, things like stablecoins as alternative and more efficient payment mechanisms. I think there's some promise there, which is why, again, we need to establish that regulated environment so that it can become more safely pervasive.
Congressman, I'm very grateful for your time, sir. Thank you. Have a good holiday, sir. Have a great.
Thank you very much.